Hi, everybody. Well, it's a gloomy day here in upstate New York. I don't like it, but I had a little bit of time and I wanted to do a video in response to quite a few comments and questions that I've gotten, which is understanding IFS and how it relates to dissociation. And of course, we all know there's a broad spectrum of dissociation where you're driving to the store and you kind of forget, you get lost in your own little daydream, all the way over to DID, or what it used to be called multiple personalities. So what I wanted to talk about today is how I, as a therapist, kind of organically weave in the concepts of internal family systems. And this is my style. It's not, I wasn't trained specifically to do it this way. It just makes sense in all the training that I've had. And and experience that I've had. But I'd like to preface all of this by just reminding you guys, this is general education. I am not your therapist, and my YouTube videos should by no means replace getting therapy for yourself with a trained therapist. So just want to say that. Lots of times in my EMDR training, this is what comes up for me because of EMDR training. When somebody is having a $100 reaction to a 5-cent problem. So it's like an irrational kind of reaction that is overboard to what is actually happening. The example I'm going to give today is, let's say, and this has come up over the years, whether it's a different appointment or a medical procedure or a job interview or going to a family function, any kind of situation that takes the person out of their comfort zone into some kind of potentially stressful situation. So let's say the person is in need of going to a doctor's appointment. They're having some kind of issue and they want to go see the doctor, but they're having a $100 reaction to going, meaning they're really scared, and so much so that they're going to avoid it. They don't want to do it at all. And like working with somebody that's experiencing this, what I also notice is right alongside this, I don't want to do it, is quickly you hear words like, it's so stupid, like I'm so stupid, like I am ridiculous, like it's so dumb, normal people shouldn't. And in my brain, and I will verbalize it, this is a manager part. So in internal family systems, Schwartz has taught us that there's 3 layers of parts: the exile parts that are carrying the unhealed trauma and unprocessed feelings, manager parts that are trying to kind of keep everything under control, and firefighter parts are the last line of defense, basically, to keep the exile parts safe. Now it's not a cookie cutter, obviously, but in my example here, I will say, well, this part of you that is trying to help by saying, knock it off, don't be so silly, don't be so ridiculous. Actually, when that part gets a little too strong, it becomes critical. And that's like a familiar voice often for people that have experienced childhood trauma. There's this critic in there. So not only do we have the $100 reaction, fear to not go to this appointment, but then we have a manager part saying, what's wrong with you? Why are you why are you so stupid, basically? So, okay, that's where we kind of start. And I will say to the person, there's reasons why you're probably nervous about this. And no, this is bigger than that. Okay, I trust that this is a $100 reaction. So what I like to say that kind of helps manager parts step back a little bit is, whenever we're having a $100 reaction to a 5-cent problem, there's a reason. Sometimes it's not obvious, often it's not obvious, but if we take the time and go back through the files of our brain of, where, like a little detective, where could this be coming from? It's got to make sense. And when we're talking about dissociation, that's the other part of this. It's a twofold purposed video. One is how to kind of bring IFS into this, and for people that have issues with dissociation, more over here on the continuum, whether it's undiagnosed DID or like otherwise specified dissociative disorder, depersonalization, that kind of thing, where potentially you know that you lose time or some other part of you kind of steps up and takes over, and you step back and you don't have that dual awareness, or you feel like you lose control, basically. So that actually is the case with these examples and the situations I'm referring to for today's video. The person going to the doctor is actually afraid that I'm going to go offline, basically. I'm not going to remember. I don't have control over what's going to be said, what's going to come out of my mouth, which is understandable because it's happened in the past. So that's where we get to, okay, well, the skill of asking for help. Asking for help is a skill. And oftentimes, I've seen this time and again, the reason the person doesn't ask for help is shame. Shame and embarrassment about the dissociation, but even more so deep in shame about the original trauma, where this trauma is coming from. And that is what I consider, well, that's an exiled part. And whether or not it's an actual little kid that comes out, just that concept of this is unhealed, I'm having a big reaction to this, I'm having this shame right behind the fear. Well, that's exile, because it's too uncomfortable, it gets in my way, we could be hurt again, it gets exiled to the back. So what I'm helping people in these situations recognize is, for one, if let's say you have this appointment and okay, the nurse, number one, let's invite a safe person to come with you if that's possible. If you do have a safe person that understands more about your situation and what you really are afraid of, that's great. Bring a friend or a family member. If it's not allowed, or if you don't have that person, okay, now we're in the doctor's office. Maybe taking aside like the nurse that comes in first, saying to the nurse, listen, I'm really nervous about this, and I do have some PTSD. Sometimes I dissociate. I'm just wondering if you could kind of help me out. Just know that, or help me talk to the doctor, or let the doctor know this for me, please. And it's important to remember that nurse or that doctor or whoever that is, they cannot read minds. They cannot see in to the history, to that shame-filled little exile part. They don't know that. And I'm not saying you have to tell them that. I'm not saying that at all. But it's like, okay, in this room right here, they don't know my whole story. They don't need to know my whole story. There is no shame in what happened to you anyway, but there is no shame in having PTSD or in having dissociation. People deal with it all the time. So that's an example of asking for help. I being a little bit more transparent while maintaining the boundary of, I'm not going to tell them my whole thing, only enough to help hold the space for me and keep me online. Or if I do start to dissociate, I'll be okay, but please understand I'm really nervous, and if you see me kind of change, that's what's happening. I go offline a little bit. And oftentimes people are thrilled to help. It's like Mr. Rogers said, always look for the helpers. There are helpers. People for the most part want to help out. So hope this makes sense, and if it applies to you and it's helpful, yay. You made my day. So we'll talk to you next time. Thanks again.